The number one kickoff place for 20 years for a nuclear war is not Russia and Europe, is not China and the U.S., not North Korea. It's India and Pakistan when you understand how much they hate each other. When you understand that for 1,000 years the Muslims have been taking over India. India used to be 3 times bigger. And now you've got a nationalist Hindu, Modi, and they've retaken Kashmir because the Muslims came in and were literally just killing anybody that wasn't a Muslim. And China's joined in against India, and Pakistan's joined in against India, and Pakistan's got a bunch of nuclear weapons, and so does India. And they've got their defense ministers literally threatening to nuke each other on national TV. And it is bad.
Welcome to episode 32 of The Whiners on May 1st, 2025. Jeff Norman and Ryan Milton with you, as always, on Thursday night. And our special guest tonight is Salman Ahmad, the culture minister to Prime Minister Imran Khan of Pakistan. And in just a few moments, we'll be talking about whether or not Mr. Jones nailed it there, or whether he's being an alarmist, as he is wont to do on occasion. Now, being on the brink of nuclear war, of course, is important, but so is what we're drinking. And tonight, it's the first Bordeaux for me since we started doing the Whiners. And some outfit called jamessuckling.com, which I'm assuming is prestigious because it costs hundreds of dollars per year to subscribe to it and get access to all their reviews, gave this wine 91 points. And the average price throughout the U.S. is $16. What are you drinking tonight, Ryan?
So I am drinking something from the Pourlieu. I don't speak French, but that's means, I think, on the edge of the forest, a winery. And they're a California wine. It's got a lot of things there in terms of the nose being very spicy, very highly rated wine. I had this recently at a wine bar in downtown Austin. It is not cheap. It's $58 a bottle, but it tastes like it. And, Jeff, you're doing a first time getting a Bordeaux, and I'm not doing a first time getting an expensive bottle of wine. Just kind of happened that way.
You can afford it. Go for it, baby.
Yeah.
Sal, is Alex Jones being an alarmist? All I know is this is a generalization, but at least it's a positive one instead of a negative one. Whenever I talk to anybody from Pakistan or India, they're always very nice and polite. But here we hear all about this hostility, so much hostility that we might have a nuclear war. What am I missing?
So, well, great to be back on your show, both of you. Did you see Bill Murray in the film Groundhog's Day?
Many times. I see it every single day.
Okay, so the reason I bring that up, is that whenever India and Pakistan and a nuclear crisis takes place, it's like Groundhog's Day. Everything happens the same exact way as in that film. Now, I'll take you back. First time I was touring with my band Junoon in India, we had a #1 album called Azadi, Freedom, and we were touring the entire country, went up to Kashmir where this terrorist attack took place also. And then one fine day in May, I'm in my hotel room, and the TV is blowing up with nuclear, saber rattling between India and Pakistan. And I was like, what is that about? So both countries tested nuclear weapons while we were on tour as a Pakistani American band in India. And it seemed like, the earth, the earth was going to end. But I've seen that movie over and over and over again. And now it's the latest chapter of that. So to tell you if this is for real or not, I'm not a soothsayer. I can't forecast, but I'll tell you this. What it does do for both countries, the governments of both countries, it gives them this muscular nationalism, which they love. The general in Pakistan gets stronger, General Asim Munir, and Prime Minister Modi gets stronger in front of his, 140 million, 1.4 billion people and 250 million people in Pakistan.
Kind of like these guys here on the border. I think this is the border. And you were saying that it's like Groundhog's Day. They're always looking stronger. And then I found this on X where they seem to be just like arguing through some kind of display, and then that huge feather on their head. You just made me start thinking a little bit about peacocks a bit.
Well,
That's way too
Ryan, it's like
theatrical to call to be considered serious arguing. Come on, they're having fun.
I don't know. Sal might know though.
well, so last year, 2024, one of the alternative religions in India and Pakistan, right, is cricket, the game of cricket, and the Cricket World Cup, the T20, which is the shorter version of the game, came to the United States and the Caribbean, and the game that was held here in Long Island in New York, it was jam packed with Indians and Pakistanis, right? Music going. This is what brings the fervor together in unity with cricket and music and films, but at the same time, like a Yankees Red Sox rivalry, you would not
Oh boy.
believe. It's like nuclear. And if you lose the game, and that was a great game, it was very close, and India just beat Pakistan, but the atmosphere at that game was incredible. But here, the nuclear crisis, I don't think that these leaders know what they're playing. They're playing with fire.
Yeah.
And you have Secretary of State Marco Rubio calling both up, "Hey, cool it down, cool it down."
The
Yeah,
Chinese are too.
the Chinese, the Middle Eastern leaders, MBS, MBZ, the Qataris, they're all saying, calm it down. But escalation can take quickly accelerate, and both the countries, nobody's holding back. They're saying we're going to annihilate you, and the Pakistanis are saying we have 170 nuclear weapons. We can destroy you, all the cities we pointed at. So it's a scary time.
Now, you mentioned your music before, and then also how violence sometimes breaks out at sporting events. Music, I think, is a little safer. And I forgot to mention that your band, Junoon, and you are the lead guitarist and vocalist for Junoon. I don't think you perform too much nowadays, but you will be in concert May 11th at the Theater at Grand Canadian Casino Resort in Toronto. So anybody who's around there, you can get your tickets on Ticketmaster, or anybody who wants to take a trip to, I guess I shouldn't say the 51st state. That didn't work out too well as far as the election went. Maybe we better ixnay on that particular joke. But anyway, am I right that you guys don't perform too much nowadays?
Thank you, Jeff, for mentioning the May 11th gig in Toronto. For the last 10 years, we have a huge audience in India, by the way, but we can't go and perform there because we're, perceived to be this band which has origins for Pakistan, and actually it's New York, Rockland County, where Brian and I come from, and Ali, our lead vocalist, is from Lahore. So India has banned us. When we play in Toronto, you see Indian fans coming, or when we play in Dubai, some people fly from India and Pakistan to come see us. But we're kind of like this band on the run.
Yeah. You guys are huge. I mean, one of the videos I was looking at has views in the millions, multi-millions.
Well, this song, Sayoni,
That's the one we played a little bit of last time, I think. I listened to that a few times.
So when India and Pakistan play in the World Cup final, the DJs play that tune because it's like it's owned by both countries, for Junoon fans. So and it's saying there is no peace and there is no solution. Sayoni, Sayoni, Sayoni.
So I appreciate that you're less than certain about a nuclear attack, but one thing that apparently has happened for sure since the attack in Kashmir a couple or so weeks ago, or what was it? I guess a couple of weeks ago, I see a lot of resorts have shut down since then out of fear. Can you describe? I mean, I know you're in New York, but you must be in touch with folks in Pakistan
And India. I have friends over there, and look, you have to see this in a way that the majority of people, the people of India and Pakistan, they get along fine with each other. They watch each other's movies, they listen to each other's music, they play cricket. Here, we hang out together. But the governments have figured this out for 78 years since 1947, when both India and Pakistan became two different nations carved out of the British India, that in order to keep us in power, we have to have the enemy state across the border. And right now, the in Pakistan, the general Asim Munir is a dark tetrad. He is a psychopath, and that what scares me about this is because he made a speech on the 17th of April saying, "I'm gonna conquer Kashmir." Okay, and
Where's he from again?
so
Where? Who is he?
General Asim Munir is the Pakistani
You've told me about him. Yes, yes, yes.
chief of army staff. He's the army chief, and he has thrown in, by the way, Pakistan's most popular leader, the greatest cricketer of all times, who loved in India and in Pakistan, obviously, Imran Khan, who's been in jail since August 5th, 2023. So him being thrown into solitary confinement, and the general who is massively disliked in Pakistan is saying, "I'm going to conquer Kashmir." That scares me.
So, Sal, you have said a couple things here that have kind of resonated in my mind with something I always think about in this region. You were talking about the great game, cricket game, but of course I was thinking about the great game, and then you also talked about British India, and I wanted to mention that the Pakistani defense minister on April 25th with Sky News, he said something very interesting. He said, "We have been doing this dirty work for the United States for about 3 decades and the West, including Britain." And he said a number of other things. And this was in response to being asked if he had a long history, or the Pakistan had a long history of backing and supporting terrorist organizations. So that's interesting to me, because historically you had where is this? Oops, let me put that back here. The Halford Mackinder Heartland theory of the globe. And you see there that his whole theory from the 20s was this idea of the geographical pivot of history. And he specifically said, "He who rules Eastern Europe controls the heartland." I think that India is considered India, Pakistan, or the British territories. He said, "Who rules the heartland commands the world island, and who rules the world island commands the world." And then later, one of the top theorists for the Nazis, Haushofer, studied him. And later, what's his name? Carter's guy, Zbigniew Brzezinski, came up with this crazy map in his book, The Grand Chessboard, where he talks about how you've got to re-look at the world. So this whole area where we're talking about this crisis is kind of like right there in the middle of historic British manipulations or great empire manipulations targeting Russia in particular. And so I think my question to you is, doesn't this play into this actually?
So great question, Ryan. Last week when they asked President Trump, well, I think when he was at the Vatican, and what do you think about what's happening in India and Pakistan? And he said, "Well, I'm close both to Pakistan and India, and we're going to make it so they're going to sort this out." What does that mean? There's a movie called, my friend Jeff Skoll produced it. It's called Charlie Wilson's War with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Right?
I saw that after you recommended that.
Right. So what the defense minister Asif, who you just mentioned, he's referring to the dirty work where you see that when the Soviet Afghan jihad was happening in the 1980s onwards, Pakistan was training the Mujahideen, right? If you see that film, all the funding, the weaponry with the CIA, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, Pakistan was the frontline state against the Soviets in Afghanistan. Then, after 9/11 and Osama bin Laden, they became the frontline state in the war on terror. So that's what he's referring to. And there's an interview that I would suggest that you guys should watch. It's Tucker Carlson with former Republican Congressman Kurt Weldon, which I just saw a couple of
Yeah,
weeks
we
ago.
just were talking about that last week.
I mean, does that blow your mind? Well, that's what he's talking about. You
But
know,
now, of course, you mentioned Imran Khan, but you and he are longtime buddies, as you had described. It's not like you know him. You are very well acquainted as school buddies. Now, my question then is: isn't his imprisonment a part of that great game of maintaining the chaos in the underbelly of Russia and China, for that matter, as well? India, Pakistan.
so again, great question, Ryan. Not school buddies. He was the captain of the Pakistan cricket team when I was a medical student, 20 years
Uh-huh, yeah,
old. He
yeah.
selected me to go, play cricket, and I've known him for 40 years.
Yeah.
He, in my view, when he came to Washington D.C. With President Trump 45, they hit it off very, very well. In fact, presidential envoy, special missions Richard Gurnell said that President Trump gets along fine with Prime Minister Khan, and U.S. Pakistan relationship should be about democracy with both of these leaders. But the general in Pakistan, General Asim Munir, doesn't agree with that equation, and he this is his play to show Trump and the United States, hey, I'm your guy, not Khan. And what I think that Khan can do for the West and also China, Russia, is to be a partner for peace. Uh, he's an independent-minded guy, but he's not a duplicitous general. For 78 years, Pakistani generals have been wagging the dog. You know that film, Wag the Dog? They've been. He is not that guy. If he comes on board, whatever he says, he will stick by, and that's why they don't want to let him out of jail. He's been in there in a torture cell
Right.
for over 600 days.
So that is also what Ambassador Chaz Freeman had said in December at a conference on this very thing. He said, we have to get to a policy where all men become brethren. So, and I know that one of the cornerstones of that with India and Pakistan is the Indus Water Treaty for all these water projects to deal with the droughts and the floods and farming, et cetera. So it seems like whomever really started this, which I don't know, up in Kashmir, certainly the idea is to blow things up while Trump might be calming things down or trying to calm things down with Russia and Ukraine, create a new crisis in Asia, somewhere on the rim of Russia. That's my view
Yeah.
in any case.
Well, Ryan, right now, the United States, as President Trump has said, he doesn't want to start wars. He wants to end them. So just like he's trying to work with Russia and Ukraine, right now he needs to weigh in his, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel have to weigh in on what's happened here. Who was behind this terrorist attack? We condemn the death of all innocents, whether it's in Pakistan or India, but they have to weigh in and stop the war, because the war would be a very, very bad idea.
Yep.
But before we let you go, so we mentioned before that you were the culture minister under the now imprisoned Imran Khan, and we also talked about your band. But we see under you that you are a UN Goodwill Ambassador, and I'm wondering, what exactly is that? How do you become that, and what do you do as a UN Goodwill Ambassador?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. So I was a special advisor on culture to Imran Khan. And as I trained to be a doctor, and especially on infectious diseases, I've worked on HIV/AIDS for the UN, for polio eradication, I volunteered my services in South Asia, especially in Pakistan. And then when COVID-19 came, I worked with the Skoll Foundation to on messaging and communication on COVID-19.
What a talent stack you have. Have you heard that phrase, talent stack?
Well, I try to keep up with my wife, and I can't. So, I'm.
Yep.
I think Scott Adams coined that phrase. It just refers to a combination of talents, which when you put them all together, it's really quite potent.
Thank you.
All right, Sal. Well, good luck with the concert. I wish you'd play around here because I'd like to see you. And I figure if we went backstage and said hello, you'd probably, you'd probably pretend you didn't know us, but maybe we could still impress our friends and say, "Come on, you were on the podcast."
No, you got backstage passes. Jeff and Ryan and the Whiners backstage passes
All right,
at
all
all
right.
June shows.
All right.
Thank you very much, Sal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Take care, Sal.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
All right. Second time with us, Sal
Bad.
Ahmad. Have
Very
you heard that phrase, talent stack?
No.
It makes a lot of sense. It really stuck with me because Scott Adams' point was you don't necessarily have to be the greatest at any one thing. But if you have a lot of different talents, if they're combined in a particular way, that makes the difference. And the poster child for that is Trump. Look at all the things he does. He's not necessarily the best at any one of them, but look at all the things that he has done, all the different skills he has. He's a very unique individual, whether you like him or don't like him.
Don't they say, what was the Thomas Jefferson quote? Skilled at, what is it? It's like skilled at many things, but master of none. Oh, but it was much more
Jack
poetic.
of all trades, master.
Jack of all
of none.
trades, master of none.
Yeah,
So
that's meant
another
as a
way of saying.
disparaging term, though. But I'm saying it as a positive thing.
Yeah.
It's about the combination. So we are about to launch a new podcast called Trump Watch that I'm producing, and Scott Ritter will be hosting. And we just recorded our first episode with Alan Dershowitz yesterday, and it's going to premiere on Tuesday on Locals, on Substack, and on X. And it went very well. We're going to give you folks a sneak preview of that, a sneak peek of that. Here's a question that Scott put to Professor Dershowitz about whether or not when Trump campaigned and was making a big deal out of immigrants, whether or not he might have exaggerated the threat. So let's take a look at that.
Threat of illegal immigration accurately defined by Donald Trump. Was America really being invaded? That seemed to be one of the points of departure between Trump and Biden and later Kamala Harris, is that Trump was exaggerating the threat that existed, that the Biden administration was, as other presidential administrations, adequately responding to this threat. Did Trump oversell the immigration as a domestic political problem?
All politicians oversell their points, and they all exaggerate their points, and they all, turn conflicts into crises and try their best to energize their base by making the argument. In this case, though, the numbers were pretty staggering, the numbers of people who were illegally coming into the country. And the fact that some of the economy was based on it. I mean, much of the agrarian economy in parts of the Southwest were essentially based on illegal immigrants because they demand lower wages, and they were, one could argue, good for that economy, but it was pretty pervasive. And so, yeah, sure, it was exaggerated, but Americans have never voted against a candidate for exaggerating something. So it was probably good politics.
Yeah, I picked that clip because Dershowitz, of course, is renowned as a constitutional expert, but he also knows politics well and the intersection of law and politics. And there's a good example of it. It's also a good example of how I think he's really a fair guy. There's no human being alive who has no bias at all, but he goes by that that credo, that the way he puts it is the other, if the shoe fits, no, if it's on the other, what's that saying?
The shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah. Right. So ask yourself, if it was one of your political favorites, if you're criticizing somebody, how you would feel. And he does a very good job of that. And, there he is saying, well, he's exaggerating, but it's not like all politicians don't exaggerate.
Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, it's true. And that's the whole thing about the immigration. Of course, we've talked about that. As he says, it is a big deal. But I think in the technology field, like if you go to San Jose, Silicon Valley, 66% of all the workers are foreigners in the technology. So there is something to it, and people feel it in a different way. So you could say Trump might be exaggerating on the one hand, but depending on where you work, you could see it everywhere.
Yeah, well, in fact, that was a point that they both addressed about how many of the Americans and people we rely on are, in fact, immigrants, and they may be undocumented. And both of these gentlemen think that we need a little bit more compassion in that regard. Let's take a look at another clip.
The vast majority of these undocumented workers commute to work. They settle into local communities. They're taxpayers. Their kids go to school. They're part of the community, 40%. We also have 1.1 million undocumented hospitality workers. That's 76% of the workforce. If you go to a hotel, the odds are your room is being made up by an undocumented worker, the people that provide the services, et cetera, for the hotel industry. And Trump has said, look, we're not going to be getting rid of these people with prejudice. He's relooking at the H-2A visa, the H-2B visas. He's talking about creating a legitimacy, a path of legitimacy where they'll leave, wait 60 days, come back, and be able to come in and do this work. This is a modification or an update, but I can't condemn Trump for this. This shows an open-mindedness to a difficult issue, having campaigned strongly to be ironclad tough against illegal immigration. He's showing some flexibility. What's your thought on that?
No, I completely agree with you, and I'd like him to show a little bit more flexibility. Take, for example, the issue that we have seen now in at least 2 or 3 cases where you have a deportable mother, but the mother, who's not a citizen, not legal, has 2 American citizens as children, a year old, 2 years old. What happens to them? It's an impossible choice. It's Sophie's choice. Not quite, because it's not death, but it's. Do you separate the mother from her 2 and 1 year old child and just deport the mother and allow the American citizens to stay in the country? Or do you encourage the mother to take her children with her? And what if there's a father in the picture who is a citizen or is documented? And we have those cases too. So these are extraordinarily complicated cases. I just think that the word over the immigration services has to be compassion. And you have to moderate the law with compassion.
So what comes into your mind immediately? Because I think of something that has just been going on in the news on this very topic of somebody who's illegal but has a kid and might be forced out of the country.
Well, what comes to mind is 2 things. First of all, I love this.
Yeah.
And the other thing that comes to mind is our previous discussions on this show about immigration with Jose Vega and Morgan. And the thing is, context matters. Like, we all, I think, react different ways depending on who we're up against or what else is being said. Mm-hmm. And I know folks got the impression that I'm, sort of anti-immigrant or whatever. And it probably seemed that way because of what the discussion was. And I'm actually not thrilled with the way activists have been carrying on.
Well, hold on. Explicitly, we were talking about Mahmoud Khalil.
Right.
And you would think that Dershowitz is essentially defending him, but for what you just said about the way that he was behaving, potentially, at least the way as
Well, yeah, I don't want to drag Dershowitz into my nightmare. I'm just
I'm
telling
not
you.
I'm not saying that, but that's just what popped into my mind as
Yeah.
as when I was watching what he was
Yeah,
saying.
it was Khalil, and who I think was negotiating on behalf of his friends who were illegally occupying a building. And I don't like that. I don't like a lot of stuff, a lot of ways that activists carry on. In another episode, Jose was touting the Colombia protesters after they chained themselves to a fence. And that's what I was reacting to. I think that's ridiculous. They were demanding that Colombia tell them who gave the Trump administration Khalil's name to have him deported. And I was like, well, first of all, you're assuming that there was such a deal made. And secondly, why the hell would Colombia ever turn over somebody's name? From what I've read, there were all kinds of conversations. And so I don't even know that there is any one person at Columbia. And also, Khalil was publicly known. So that's what I was reacting to. But I think that the way Dershowitz and Scott talk about it is exactly what's needed, because they're trying to put it in a realistic context. The law is what really changes people's lives for better or worse.
That's right.
Yeah, and I was disagreeing with Jose when he was saying, "Oh, the law is irrelevant," and that was what it was about. So I like this, when compassion is talked about in reference to the law, and how can we strike a balance between these competing considerations that's compassionate.
Well, and I would say also empathy, because it's very easy to stake your position, but if you can't begin to listen to the alternative, then how can you ever come to a solution?
So did you ever say what it was that you thought of when you saw that? Or
I thought of Mahmoud Khalil. That's what I was saying. I thought of that whole discussion because of what Jose was saying. And I think even Morgan might have brought up his wife had a child, and so, you know, there's going to be the chaos that would be brought on if he's sent out, which again, Dershowitz appears to be saying you've got to take those kinds of things into consideration. But I mean, it's also the case that I think Trump is really going after the criminal element, not just
right. That's what Scott was saying.
Everybody.
And it's not easy. It's just, I always use that phrase, strike a balance between competing considerations. Another dilemma where that is very much needed is with regard to how many people the administration is trying to deport. So on one hand, you're saying, well, everybody should get due process. But on the other hand, the numbers are so big. What do you do about that?
Actually, there's a meme about that where I saw, it says, how does it that somebody who came into the country without due process should be getting due process on their way out of the country?
Yes, I'm familiar with that. But then the counter to that is, well, how do you know they came in illegally? That's simply the position the government is taking. So I'm really torn. I mean, I would like to actually talk to Dershowitz or some legal expert about that specific thing in more detail. What can be done about that? Is there a way to strike a balance between giving people due process, but maybe doing it in some new, unique way that takes into account how many of them there are? You can't have normal trials for 1 million people and be done anytime in the next 200 years.
Yeah, that's right. Already the legal system is completely overloaded, so it'd be a good way to just break the entire judicial system in the United States more.
Now, immigration cases are not held in the same manner as regular trials. They have special courts anyway for that. I'm not an expert on it, but it's very much, I think they have less due process, and it's more of an administrative thing than it is where in a normal trial, the defendant has rights to, what's the word where you get to see what the other person has on you?
Discovery.
Yeah, discovery, and all these rights that don't necessarily apply.
You
Even,
have voir
normal-
dire. You can. I've watched a lot of legal shows, so you have voir dire. You got to figure out how to do the jury. I don't even know if they have a jury in the same way.
No, I don't think they do actually. No. So that's another difference, right?
Yeah.
So the other big poster child, we mentioned Khalil, the big poster child is this guy with 4 names, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia.
You said that well.
Who was deported, and not just deported, but imprisoned in El Salvador. And the Trump administration admits that it was a mistake. And now there's this weird ruling from the Supreme Court saying, well, you got to do what you can to facilitate his return. And I think just yesterday or today, there was news from, what's the president of El Salvador's name? Bukele.
Oh, yeah.
Is that how to say it?
I don't remember. It would be, yeah.
Oh.
I don't remember his name, though.
Well, he said he's not going to return him. But it's sort of, you got to wonder whether or not he's just doing what Trump wants him to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how about if we ask you to return him, and, if you don't want to, I mean, who are we to argue? Wink, wink.
What you're going to do? You're going to just say. You're going to say it.
So Dershowitz made a point that I haven't heard anybody else make about this situation. He says, like, both sides are exaggerating what the problem is.
Right.
And he said that they could just conduct the hearing on Zoom. So let's take a look at that.
Preparing for this, I've watched you make presentations on other shows. So this is one I think that you have addressed. And it's basically the deportation of illegal immigrants to El Salvador, to the Terrorism Confinement Center, or CCOT. This has been raised as an Eighth Amendment issue, a cruel and unusual punishment. And specifically, I believe the courts of the United States, the Supreme Court, has issued a writ of habeas corpus or something to the equivalent, saying you must produce the body, you must bring the body back. Am I wrong in my constitutional interpretation of this?
Partly wrong, partly right. It's not an amendment issue. The Supreme Court has said, in an opinion by, I think, Justice Thomas, that the Eighth Amendment only applies to punishments administered after conviction in a formal criminal case. It doesn't apply to a deportation. So it's not an Eighth Amendment issue, but it still may be a constitutional issue. If the court has said, and they used ambiguous language, you have to facilitate the bringing back of this man to America. By the way, it was a foolish decision. There's no reason why he has to be brought back to America. That's why God invented Zoom. We're on right now. And I have argued cases, important cases, over Zoom. There's no reason why this man can't be taken from his prison cell in El Salvador. And by the way, he's not in the worst prison. He's in a medium security prison. Why he can't be taken to the American embassy, put in an office, have him on Zoom, have his lawyer on Zoom, have the administrative judge on Zoom, let him have a full and complete hearing. If the judge rules in his favor, he's on an airplane back to the United States. And if the judge rules against him, which he almost certainly will, he stays there, or he goes to Nicaragua, or he goes to Guatemala, or he goes to Brazil, or he goes somewhere else. I think both sides are making mountains out of molehills when it comes to where the case is litigated. With modern technology, it doesn't matter where. It just matters whether substance is elevated over form.
Seems obvious, but I haven't heard anybody else say that. Have you?
No, not at all. And I'm sure that that's what happened exactly during COVID. Probably had all kinds of trials like that.
Yeah. People used to say, oh, everything was impossible until it became necessary. Necessity is the mother of invention. I remember my doctor, every time, I had a minor ailment and I just wanted to get a prescription. And like, oh, no, you've got to come in. You've got to come in. And then COVID comes and suddenly, no, I guess it's not that necessary to come in.
And they still charge you the same amount, though.
Well, I think that was the real reason. It was an insurance scam or whatever. So, have you heard about Trump's tattoo faux pas? He kind of made a fool of himself.
So no, not beyond what we were saying just before here. Oh, look at that.
So this guy that we're talking about, Garcia, with 4 names, has on his hand this tattoo, and there's Trump holding it up. But let me give you a close-up on it. So on his fingers...
Wait, isn't that like your tattoo?
I don't have any tattoos. I'm not nearly that hip. But so this is the it doesn't even make sense to me, but this is the interpretation that's been made. The marijuana leaf is supposed to signify the M in MS-13, the terrible gang, right? And then the next finger over, there's a smiley face. So that's supposed to symbolize the S. And then a cross is supposed to symbolize 1. And then a skull somehow is supposed to represent 3. I don't really know how that's so. But anyway, so they put over the photo of the actual tattoo, they superimposed, photoshopped, manipulated, whatever the word is, MS-13, I think just for the purpose of making it clear what the interpretation is.
What do you call it? It's like your legend, right? To decipher the map.
Yeah, right. That was the purpose of it. So Trump is interviewed by Terry Moran of ABC a couple of nights ago, and Trump seems to think that the MS-13 is actually part of his tattoo. Wait,
hold on. Go back to this. Hold on a second. Yeah. Okay, so Hassan in the chat, he says, it's not a smiley face, that's death smiling.
All right, but same thing. If it's death smiling, then it's still the S, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know how anybody sees any. If I look at that, it just looks like smudged ink on a hand to me. Anyway, so Trump was interviewed by Terry Moran. Trump, frankly, made a fool of himself because Moran was, correctly pointing out that the MS-13 was, I think as he put it, photoshopped or whatever. But Trump was not only insisting that it was part of the tattoo, but he was like scolding Moran for it. Take a look at this.
Member of a gang, and then they looked, and on his knuckles he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was photoshopped. So let me
That was photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshopped? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but
photograph.
they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
That neither of them are going to give an inch on that. So that's where, actually, they're both kind of stupid in that regard.
Well, Timmerman is right, but he should have, when Trump said, "Do you want me to show you the photo?" He should have said, "Yeah." He was very he was a little timid. He was afraid to really cut into Trump.
So see, I was wondering, didn't Trump have that picture just ready like that and say, "See here"?
Oh yeah, I don't know when Trump said, "You want me to show it to you?" I don't know if he actually had it there or not.
Man.
So now that it's obvious that Trump fucked up, the press keeps asking questions about it, and the White House won't say anything about it. So it's getting worse.
Jeff, I think you need 2 little teardrops right here, tattoo teardrops. It's supposed to mean you're just a happy person.
I thought you were describing.
No,
my
tattoo,
emotions.
A prison tat, right there, just two little teardrops. Yeah.
That would make me look a little tougher than I am, maybe.
Yes, it would compensate.
I need all the help I can get. Anyway, that is a sneak preview of Trump Watch. As I said, it's going to premiere Tuesday on Locals, X, and Substack, and I think it's going to be a hit. I couldn't think of anybody better than Scott Ritter to host a show like this, because he has time and time again both criticized Trump and praised him. And that's exactly what the world needs, is somebody to keep track of all things Trump and do it in a way that, just exposes it all, for better or worse.
Yeah, get rid of the false certainty and just be willing to be open to the fact that something is good and something is not good, and be equally able to admit both. Because nobody's doing that today in politics.
I think I said it's sort of a report card on all things Trump, and actually that's one of the segments in the show, is that after each section, Scott grades Trump A, B, C, D, F. And
now, I don't think we should say what they both
I'm not going
said.
I'm not going to give it away.
Yeah, because that's actually very important. Because then Scott, I think there's like a little bit of an after show where he makes then a few other little comments, or maybe that's where he does the grade?
No. He does it throughout the show. So
that's right.
Yeah, he divides it into 3 segments. I know I won't say how they graded him, but I will say, because I didn't know how Dershowitz was going to react to it, but he played along very nicely, and Dershowitz got into grading in a very precise fashion.
No, I thought it was very, very interesting. People are going to, if they get over their own hang-ups about what they've heard about Dershowitz or whatever, and just listen to the discussion, they're going to really find it enlightening, I think.
Yeah, he's a sharp guy. He's interesting. He's not boring. And the two of them together are really good.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we can end a little early this week, unless there's anything else on your mind, my friend. You're off to Russia on Saturday, right?
Saturday morning. I'm going to. I'm not going to be in the parade in Moscow, but I will be near the parade, and I'll be. I'm very much interested in the victory celebration there, and I'm looking forward to it.
Will you be sampling the wine there? I mean, since this is the Winers, let's. I hope you'll.
Yeah, well, actually, on that point, so today is May 1st, and in Russia they celebrate May Day. This is Labor Day, which, by the way, we don't celebrate that in the United States on this day, because we were too upset about how it was socialist, communist, so we pushed Labor Day to September. But anyway, in Russia, you're supposed to be you're supposed to drink a shot of vodka today. So don't forget to do that today, Jeff. I will then be drinking wine in Russia and enjoying.
What's the wine scene like in Russia? You know?
So I've had Georgian wines. There are Crimean wines. So there's a lot of wine. Actually,
you've had it where?
In Russia.
You had it when you were in Russia previously.
Yeah.
And is it plentiful, easy to get, good selection, good prices? Not that you care about prices because you're rich, but
no. It's reasonable for sure. You
won't have to spend all your rubles on. You'll leave a few rubles over to tip the hotel.
Right.
Undocumented. No.
Okay. So Alex Lithium says we're only supposed to drink vodka today. Oh shoot, we blew it with the wine. Oh my gosh.
I didn't even know about it, so sorry.
Yeah. So we're going to go to some concerts and hear a lot of the songs from World War II. We're going to see a lot of the different soldiers practicing their marches, because the parade itself is a very exclusive event. Because of the war. And actually, Zelensky said that they might attack Moscow during the parade. So there's the guy. I know. Well, that's what he claims, and he says he's for peace, right? So it's kind of insane.
All right, and your plan is, even though you're going to be in Russia next Thursday night, your plan is to be with us, maybe not the following Thursday, but next Thursday. And we should tell the audience that our special guest next Thursday is Ryan Dawson. We've been talking about 9/11, and all the activists, whom I call kooks, have been very angry at me and saying, you got to get Ryan Dawson on. You got to get Ryan Dawson on. So we got him. All you 9/11 kooks, be sure to tune in next week, and you can call in and yell at me, and we'll try to hash it all out. Should be an interesting show.
Jeff, I'm going to do things in Russia because Ryan Dawson said that's the way it is. So I'm not going to tell you now, but when I'm there, I'm going to say this is because it's what Ryan Dawson said. So
that's what our audience, the 9/11 kooks say. They
said bring him on, so I'm going to do exactly what he said on this. So,
all right. So 2 Ryans next week, Ryan Milton and Ryan Dawson on the Whiners. We're going to dig into the 9/11 issue. It's been only 24 years, so any minute now, I think.
Well, he's going to set us straight. At least you, Jeff.
All right.
He's going to set you straight.
All right. John in Somerville, I know you're going to be tuning in for this. I'm talking to you, John. John didn't even call tonight. What's going on?
I know, John.
He must be drinking vodka and unable to speak coherently. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ryan. Have a great trip, and join us tomorrow night on Ask the Inspector with Scott Ritter at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm sure we'll be talking a bit more about Trump Watch then. And as I said, that debuts Tuesday. Take care, Ryan. Have a great trip. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody.
Bye.